Hi, welcome to this Corbettmaths video. In this video, we're going to look at the GCSE Further Maths topic of quadratics, and we're going to look at the quadratic formula. Now, even though the quadratic formula won't be tested as its own separate question, it may possibly be included in other questions, so it's quite useful to know the quadratic formula anyway. So because it's a recap of GCSE Maths, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through two examples now, just to make sure that you're confident with using the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. And you should recognise that from GCSE Maths. But also, whenever you open that GCSE Further Maths exam paper, whether it's pure maths, mechanics, or even statistics, on that first page where you've got those formulae, so the formula sheet, you'll find the quadratic formula there for you. So if you need to use that, the quadratic formula, for a question, it is there for you. So you don't need to remember this off by heart. So if you've forgotten that x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a, then it's there on the front of the exam paper for you. You just go to that formula sheet. Okay? So this is the quadratic formula, and I'm just going to move it over here. So we can use the quadratic formula to solve a quadratic in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So if you've made your quadratic equal to 0, it'll be in this form ax squared plus bx plus c. You'll have a value for a, where a is the coefficient of the x squared term. So here, because it's just x squared, a is equal to 1. It's 1x squared. So a here would be equal to 1. You may have a value for b, so here in this case b is equal to 4, the coefficient of x, and coefficient in maths, remember, is just the value in front of a particular term. So here the coefficient of x is 4, so b is equal to 4. And then c is the constant on the end here. So here we've got that c is equal to negative 9, so c is equal to negative 9. So there are values here for a, b, and c. A is equal to 1, the coefficient of the x squared term is 1, because it's 1x squared, we just don't write the 1 there. The coefficient of x is 4, so b is equal to 4, and the constant on the end here is equal to negative 9, so c is equal to negative 9. Now we've got the values of a, b, and c. We're going to substitute them into the quadratic formula. So we have that x equals negative b, well b was 4, so that's going to be negative 4, plus or minus the square root of, and then underneath the square root we've got b squared, well b's 4, so that's going to be 4 squared, so 4 squared, minus, and then we've got 4ac. Now I like to put the whole of 4ac in brackets here, so I like to put 4ac in a big bracket here. So we've got 4 multiplied by a, which is 1, multiplied by c, which is negative 9, and then I close brackets. I like to put that whole 4ac in a bracket just to make sure that I don't make a mistake with the negatives, and that's all divided by 2a, and a is equal to 1, so here we've got in the denominator 2 times 1. Okay, so that's fantastic. Now at this point you can actually type this into the calculator. You can actually type in, press the fraction button, and do negative 4 plus the square root of 4 squared minus, and then in brackets 4 times 1 times negative 9, close brackets, and then move down to the denominator and type in 2 times 1, and then get that solution, and then change the plus sign to minus, and then press equals, and you get the other solution as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a few steps in solving this. Okay, so our next bit then would be, I'd write x equals, and then I'd have negative 4 plus or minus, and then I would simplify what's under the square root sign. So I would do 4 squared, that's equal to 16, and then minus, and then let's work out what's inside this bracket here. So we've got 4 times 1, which is 4, times negative 9, which is negative 36, close brackets, and that's all divided by 2 times 1, which is 2. So that's fantastic. At this point, again, you could get your calculator and press the fraction button and type in negative 4 plus the square root of 16 minus 36, close brackets, all over 2. And you can type that into the calculator like that and get the answer. And then change the plus sign to a minus sign. And again, press equals and get that other solution. Because remember, they are calculator papers, so you can do that on the calculator. Alternatively, we could do a bit more simplifying and here and get that negative 4 plus or minus the square root of. And 16 minus 36, well, 16 minus that means plus 36 would be equal to 52, and then that's all over 2. And then again you can type this into the calculator, negative 4 plus the square root of 52 divided by 2, and then negative 4 minus the square root of 52 divided by 2, and get the two solutions that way. Or we could split it up and write it as negative 4 plus the square root of 52 divided by 2, or x equals negative 4 minus the square root of 52 divided by 2. Now at this point I probably would just type it into the calculator and then get our answers. So if we type those in, so negative 4 plus the square root of 52 divided by 2. And if you then press equals, you get an answer of x equals -2 plus the square root of 13. So it comes up here in surd form. And if you change it to a decimal, you get that x equals 1.605551275. And that would be the value for x there. And then for this part here, I probably would just go back to my calculator display and change the plus to a minus, and then press equals. And then again, it comes up as a surd. It gives me an answer of x equals -2 minus the square root of 13. And as a decimal number, if we change it to a decimal, we get that x equals -5.605551275. So there are two solutions. Okay, and actually just going back up to the question, we've been asked to give our answers to one decimal place. So if we go on down here, if we round these to one decimal place, we'd get that x would be equal to 1.6, or in this case, x is equal to -5.6, and that's it. Okay, let's look at our next question. So the next question says, solve 4x squared minus 7x plus 2 equals 0, and to give our answers to two decimal places. Okay, so we've got a quadratic equaling 0. So we've got our values for a, b, and c. Remember, it's in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So in this case, a would be equal to the coefficient of x squared, which is 4. B would be the coefficient of x, the number in front of the x, which is -7, and c is the constant there, which is equal to 2. And remember the quadratic formula. I'm just going to write it down again here. And if you've forgotten it, remember it's on that formula sheet, so you can just go to that formula sheet and you'll see that x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. So that's the quadratic formula. And now we just need to substitute these values in. So we're going to get that x equals -b, but we've got a negative here in front of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the sign. We're going to change it from being -7 to 7. Or another way to think of it is you're timesing it by -1, and if you've got -7, you times it by -1, you get 7. But the negative b means you're changing the sign of it from either positive to negative or negative to positive. Okay, then plus or minus the square root of, and then we've got b squared, so that's going to be -7, and I'm just putting that in brackets squared. And it's important that if you are typing it into the calculator, you do have that in brackets. That's why sometimes for the quadratic formula I actually like to do a little bit of simplifying myself before I type it into the calculator. Minus, and then I like to put the 4ac part all in brackets, so bracket 4 times a, which is 4, times c, which is 2. And then close brackets. And that's all divided by 2a, so that's 2 times 4, so 2 times 4. Okay, now let's do a bit of simplifying here. So I would tend to do a bit of simplifying before I type it into the calculator. You could type it into the calculator, but be very careful, particularly with this part here. So x equals 7 plus or minus the square root of -7 squared. Well, that's -7 times -7, and a negative times a negative is a positive, so that's going to be 49 minus 4 times 4 times 2. Now 4 times 4 is 16, times 2 is 32. So that's 32, and that's all divided by 2 times 4, which is 8. Now at this point, I probably would just type this into my calculator and type in 7 plus the square root of 49 minus 32 all over 8, and then change the plus sign to the minus and to get the other solution. But let's just do a bit of simplifying here. So we're going to get that x equals 7 plus or minus the square root of 49 take away 32 is 17 divided by 8. And then at this point, I definitely would just type it into the calculator and get the x equals, and I would type in the fraction button, and then 7 plus the square root of 17 divided by 8. And that comes up as 7 plus root 17 over 8, or as a decimal number, that would be 1.39038, and so on. Or the other solution would be if we change that plus sign into a minus sign, you get the x equals 0.3596117, and so on. And we want to give our answers to the two decimal places. So for this solution, x would be equal to 1.39, or for this solution, x is equal to 0.359, so it's going to be 6. And that's it. So there are two solutions. And that's it. So it's very important to be able to solve quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. It's on the formula sheet, which means that CCEA know that it may be useful for a particular question, so they give it to you. So you don't need to remember the quadratic formula off by heart, but you need to know how to use it. Also, one thing I want to mention is it's very important to know how to solve quadratic equations by using completing the square as well, because you may actually get on the pure maths paper a question saying solve this quadratic using completing the square. So you definitely need to know that as well. So that's a very useful video as well. But I really hope you found this video useful, and if you have found it useful, please like and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.